One of the most covered stories about the upcoming Olympics is who's not competing in Paris.
It was a stupid decision.
WNBA rookie Caitlin Clark has been left off Team USA in favor of more veteran talent, like Asia Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Diana Taurasi, to name a few. But a generation ago, none of these women would have been allowed to compete at the Olympics. Neither would Steph Curry, LeBron James, Jason Tatum, and the rest of the men's team. Nor golfers Scottie Scheffler or Rory McIlroy. I could go on, but I'll get to my point. All of these athletes are paid professionals, and it wasn't that long ago the Olympics barred pro athletes from participating. When the International Olympic Committee brought back the Olympic Games in 1894, they built the modern foundation on amateurism, a word literally derived from lover. The argument was that amateur athletes competed for the love of the sport, not for the money. Former IOC President Avery Brundage claimed the amateur code prevented the Olympics from being used by individuals, organizations, or nations for ulterior motives. Leaders of the Olympic movement would point back to the tradition of the ancient games. But the concept of amateurism is somewhat of a misnomer.
They weren't amateurs. They were supported in their training. If they won, even in the ancient games, they'd never have to pay for a drink again for the rest of their lives.
Olympic historian David Walachensky has been a fan of the games since he was a child.
So my father was a big Olympics fan, and he brought me to the Olympics in Rome when I was 12 years old. I got to see the opening ceremony, a couple events, and so I became hooked. I wanted to read a book that had all the results and all the best stories, and it didn't exist. So I spent 2.5 years creating it.
One of those Olympic stories is that of Jim Thorpe, with whom Walachensky has an interesting family tie. His father ghost wrote for Thorpe back in the day.
Jim Thorpe was the greatest athlete of the 20th century, and he had won gold medals at the 1912 Olympics and had them taken away because he had played semi-pro baseball. Jim
Thorpe is a prime example of the problem with amateurism. The year after he swept gold in Stockholm in the decathlon and the pentathlon, the IOC took away his medals for having previously played 2 summers of semi-pro baseball. And here's what's ridiculous about that, besides the fact that it's not even the same sport. Many other Olympic athletes played semi-pro baseball, but they weren't penalized because they played under fake names. Thorpe's crime was using his real one. The IOC eventually righted that wrong, reinstating Thorpe's gold medals, but he never lived to see it. It happened decades after his death. Thorpe wasn't the reason the Olympics finally relented and stopped ringing the amateurism bell. No, the move to allow pro athletes into the Olympics stretched decades and a lot of skirting the rules.
You got the communist countries come in 1948, and then the Soviet Union 52. And they said, we don't have professional athletes. They're all members of the army, because all they did was compete in sports.
The Soviet screen came to a head on the hockey rink. Canada was furious. Well, as furious as Canadians get.
Canada got really angry. We're the best country in the world at ice hockey. We're sending amateurs, and the Soviet Union sending professionals.
The Canadian hockey team even boycotted the 72 and 76 Olympics over it. Then in 1980, the US had its Miracle on Ice, beating those Soviet professionals with an amateur team.
You believe in miracles? Yes!
Finally, the IOC sport by sport went, okay, you can make money at the Olympics and still be in the Olympics.
And now, the United States of America.
It was the dream team that marked the true death of amateurism in the Olympics. You have to know this one. It's 1992 in Barcelona, the first time NBA players could play in the Olympics, and they did it with arguably the greatest sports team of any sport ever assembled. The team included little-known players Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, and a whole roster of the best players in the world. They won all 8 games by an average of 44 points each, and coach Chuck Daly never called a single timeout. The Dream Team helped grow the NBA's popularity on a global stage. And 3 decades later, the WNBA is getting its moment. With or without Caitlin Clark, in Paris, Team USA will strive for its 8th straight win, which would break the record for the most consecutive Olympic team victories in all Olympic sports. The women haven't lost an Olympic game since 1992.